Good evening, everybody. So glad you could all make it to this. Looking very much forward to this talk tonight. Stefanos, I think many of you have gotten in touch with him over his career. He set up design systems at Fluxys, Eurocontrol, and now setting it all up at BPOST as well. So a huge challenge. Please welcome, therefore, with a big applause, the Gandalf of the design systems, Stefanos.
I hope my hair is not that white as Gandalf's. Thank you for the invitation and giving me an opportunity to talk about or nerd out about my work. And thank you for being here because it's a beautiful day and I really don't understand what you're doing here. Like, I wouldn't be there if I were you, but okay, since you chose it, it's okay. The responsibility falls on you, not on me. So yeah, just a small disclaimer. We're gonna use the term design systems a lot in this talk. Is anyone who doesn't understand what they are, they don't know, the first time they hear this term? No one? Oh, perfect audience. I don't have to explain, but just for the sake of, having a kind of a definition to start with, this is at least how I understand design systems, as it's not a library of components. It's more of a system made of people, the tools they're using, the assets they're producing, aiming at one goal to facilitate, so influence how design decisions are made into organization, how requirements are brought into design, and how these requirements translate into tangible assets, and these assets shared with the developers so they can build their products. So we have like three parts: facilitation, codification, which means literally in code, but also like documenting design decisions, and then sharing. So this is like the definition we're gonna go for, not the only source of truth. I don't like this one. Yeah, so as Sebastian mentioned, my current mission is design system owner at BPOST, and at an extent at BPOST Group. You can Google what BPOST Group is. It's huge. And I started only just now setting things up in BPOST. And yeah, as also Sebastian mentioned, it's not my first rodeo. I have been involved in design systems in various organizations, but in a kind of different capacity. So far I have been addressing design systems more from a design point of view and a conceptual point of view. So, okay, building components in Figma and doing that production work was one part, but the other part was helping the people that took the initiatives to frame the design system, kind of figure out its shape, its governance, and all that. But in all these occasions, surprisingly enough, my relation with developers were fairly limited. So yeah, I was working on design systems, but most of the times I wasn't in touch with development. It was like these people that I know they're gonna be involved at some point, but not now. And I don't know who they are or what they're doing. And the best case scenario, I had like a monthly meeting with them to show them, okay, we have new components, take the components. I don't know what you're gonna do with them. I don't care. Now, in my current mission, that is fairly recent, the situation is a bit different because I am in a team where I'm the only designer, and I'm in a team with 2 to be 3 developers, each developer responsible for a platform, so iOS, Android, and web. Not only that, but of course, we are building a design system, right? So developers are our main users. I have to empathize, I have to understand them as a user-centered product designer. That is where also I started from before moving in design systems. And okay, so far so good, but then it gets complicated because we're talking about large organizations and too many developers, not enough designers. Too many teams on on site, teams off site. using different stacks, not sharing their source code to see what they're doing. There is a bit of a mess, you know, and a bit of a panic mode maybe when you start figuring out the mess that you have to deal with and share your design system. So of course, first reaction is kind of panic. Second reaction is, yeah, we have to figure out a way to think again the collaboration between designers and developers, because what I knew from before, it doesn't make any sense anymore. So I started to have some ideas. At the same time, Sebastian and the people here invite me for the talk. So this talk is about these ideas about how collaboration can be different between people, designers and developers, when there is a design system in place. And these are ideas. So there is nothing in this talk that you can take, go to your organization and just implement it. Fair warning. It's just first sketches, let's say. Now, okay, we have to rethink about collaboration. In order to rethink about collaboration, we have to think a bit about, okay, what are we trying to do here? What is that we are building and why we're building it? I don't know if you are involved in design systems here. Hands in design system people, 1, 2, 3. All right. So I don't know what's about you and what is like your mental image of a perfect design system or an ideal design system. For me, it looks like this. It's basically a Figma plugin with one button, and I press the button and all the changes from Figma automatically translate into code, and it's there. And it's done. So that's my ideal version of a design system. Yeah. And if you think to that extreme, I know probably it's not exactly feasible to do so. Maybe it is. I don't know yet. But if you push this idea to the extreme, then the impact is also extreme, right? So if indeed we manage to do that, we don't need to talk to each other anymore. Why developers and designers talk to each other when I can press a button, all changes are up there, I don't have to share anything. Yeah, so we have our magic button, and the impact is that the handover is dead. That dreadful, awkward ritual where there are designers and developers together, and designers try to explain what they design and the beautiful vision about it, it's over. Huh? We don't have it anymore, it's not there. Kinda. I mean, I think something will stay there. Something will be there still. But it will be complementary, and there will be something else in its place. And for the sake of symbolism, maybe it's a secret handshake. So why a secret handshake? Oh, what happened here? Oh. Yeah. For the sake of symbolism, if you look at secret handshakes, I don't know if you haven't looked at secret handshakes or where they come from, we have these characteristics. First of all, it's a sophisticated sequence of interactions between two people. You have all these movements with their hands that both people know before the handshake, and usually these movements with our hands carry some meaning. They're not random. Huh? It's a symbol of something. And in order to reach the point of having this very nice choreography between hands, we need to have agreed in a lot of things between us before. Like we belong in the same group, or in the best case scenario, in the same cult. We will all believe that the earth is flat, and we have a secret handshake about it. It will look like this. Yeah. So there is a framework, and the idea of this talk is to try to sketch out this framework. What is the common understanding we have with developers in our work in order to reach to a point that the handover is like this. It's like a node, it's a movement, and it's not all this awkwardness of, oh yeah, we have to place the button here, and when you click it, you go there. So, our framework. Can you read? I don't know, because I have the light in front of me and I don't know. I cannot read, but okay. So for the rest of the talk, I will go through these points. It's sequential, so you need the one to go to the other. Starting with the first one, which is respecting the natives. How many designers we have here? Okay. I'm not sure if you're gonna like this point, the designers in the group, and I'm a designer, but yeah, I think that digital product designers, we need to become a bit more humble in our definitions, in the way we envision and think about products. And what do I mean by that? If you come from a digital product design mentality and discipline, you have this vision, you create your style guide, you go there, you have like this book that is like the Bible of your design. You go to the developer, you're like, that's it. Please build it. And we do that, and we define things as designers, having in mind kind of something that is a bit agnostic. It's like we are designing an apartment without taking into account the material they're going to use to build it. It's like, okay, we're designing something to be built with glass, and then the developer comes and says, dude, I only have bricks. Or the other case, we design something with bricks, and then the developer comes and says, but we have more advanced material than this. Why are we designing for bricks? So we need to be humble in a way that it's not the single point of source of truth. It's not our truth. It's a truth that is constructed together with the developers, and we cannot afford to become technology agnostic when we are working on design systems. Because if we do so, you might have kind of this scenario. Like, this is the simplest override you can do. So the designer comes and says, okay, my body type size is 16 pixels. The developer says, okay, do you want 60 pixels? I will put 16 pixels in the style guide. What happens is when the developer does that, is that overrides the system font, because pixels is an absolute unit. That means that if I change the system font size, it will not affect my product. That means that if I have vision problems and I want everything to be bigger, my product will not grow the same way, because I broke the relation with the system font. The Android developer was a bit smarter. So he went there and says, yeah, 16. Let's see in the material 3 definition what's the equivalent of 16, and let's use that. So we are safe in Android. It's okay. Accessibility is saved because we use something that is relative and not the absolute. The poor iOS developer is still looking what I'm going to do with pixels when all my systems are in points. They start to Google it, okay, how to translate, or he might take the number as it is, 16, and put it into points with something which is completely different. So we have to take into account the material we have in our disposal to design with, the frameworks that we are designing for. We have to be mindful about what we are overriding as designers and why we're doing it. It must be something that is purposeful, and must be something that is kind of strategic, not like going into small details and changing pieces of the code just to satisfy the ego. Not the ego, it's not the right word. The vision, let's say, of the designers, right? And overriding costs money. And that's an argument that you can bring to any business people and say, why this not has what design, why it doesn't look different? Because we have to override and it costs money. And also, when we have so many frameworks and we are standing on the shoulder of giants like iOS material, and we're designing on top of that, if we are starting to override things like randomly, we're going to end up with a lot of dirty code and a lot of nasty hacks. We're going to start breaking frameworks that were very well thought of. And yeah, I know that it's a bit controversial having a design system owner saying that, yeah, that eventually your app in Android and your app in iOS and your web app might look a bit different. But I would argue that consistency is something that we should worry about where it matters, not by default and everywhere. So yes, I prefer my developers not to spend time overriding the default style of a checkbox in 3 platforms just to have the same checkbox across platforms. It doesn't make any sense. No user will take the Android device, the iOS device, and say, oh, the checkbox is different, cannot use this. No one. We should focus our effort for consistency in more high-level things like structure, like navigation, like, okay, if I find something in the menu here, I know when I go to the website, I will find it in a similar place, but not in the level of component and UI element. We can skip some consistency there, which is not easy. Yeah? So let's assume that we made it and we respected the natives and we put down our vision down to earth to what materials we have. It's the first step. It's the first symbol in the handshake. Then it comes the matter of language. So once upon a time, a designer and developer were the same person. I mean, that was it. There was a console, people write code, and you had the first GUI and the first graphical interface. The more we advance in our technologies and the better we become in the designing and developing products, we started to split. So you started to have different designer and developer with the same concern. You start to have designers that have different concerns between them. You have UX, you have UI. From the development side, you're starting to have different stacks of developers, different flavors. So eventually, it's like what happened in the story of Babylon, that people started to build a huge tower to reach God, and in the process, they start speaking different languages, and they stop communicating, and the product and the tower fell down. So it's not something that is it's a sign that we have advancing in specialization, we become more specialized, we have our own vocabularies, so we don't talk the same language anymore. And we don't necessarily have to, but we have to acknowledge the fact that we don't. Now, there are like 2 cases. There is a scenario that we're talking about exactly the same thing, but we're using different terms. That's the most idiotic example in the world, and you're never going to use it. A designer will call a container frame in Figma. A web developer will call it a div. Another developer, if it's like an horizontal, will call it a row. An H-stack, and for an iOS developer. There is also the case that we use the same terms, but we mean something different. It might be the case that large or small or medium is something different in our different languages. So in design systems, they talk about, a single design language, let's say. I think the case is that we are more talking about design dialects in a design system than languages. So there is 2 ways of dealing with it. First, we can agree on common terms and naming formats. So we can come to some understanding and call some things exactly the same. It's a game you can play with your team, print out your design system elements and start naming them to see, okay, do we all mean the same thing when we say a button? Do we all call chips, or we use the word tags, or try to come up in a certain framework about how we name things, and also how we structure the naming of a thing. Like there are many frameworks you can use like BEM or something similar, that we have the same structure in all kind of naming. So that's one part. The other part, and it's an idea coming from the world of content and translation, is that we can metaphorically and literally start building translation memories. A translation memory is basically a database that says, okay, whenever you see the word dog, that's the equivalent of the word skylos in Greek. I'm Greek, by the way, I don't know if you noticed. Yeah. So in our case, and in BPOST, we have to make sense between 4 different dialects, let's say, that speak about the same thing, and usually exactly the same thing. So we have the legacy style definitions in Figma, meaning that the people that created the style guide that now we're trying to turn into a living design system made some definitions, gave stuff a name, okay. The Android developer uses Material M3, Shift UI in the iOS, and in web for now we are implementing PrimeNG. So we have these 4 dialects to think about. We started working on it, first from the color. So this is like how our translation memory looks like. We have the core colors that are expanding into palettes. The palettes gets a functional description, like, okay, we're gonna use this color as our primary, and then these definitions are translated into equivalent tokens for our different dialects. More in detail, this is our core colors. These are the palettes that were expanded from there. And then if you go to the level of different packages that we prepare, you see the same colors, but they are organized differently according to the vocabulary of each framework. Now, in terms of who gets what, we have the core colors and the palettes that is only for the design system people, so no one should bother about them. They're not exposed to designers, not exposed to developers, unless we're starting to think about, okay, let's enrich our visual language, so then we're gonna start to draw new combinations from palettes with the designers. The semantic colors is the space for the designers to define their own language, so we're gonna have a workshop and say, okay, how should we name color? Should we keep the names that we have now? Do we need something more meaningful? Does it make sense maybe to adopt something else from the other platforms to make our lives easier? We're gonna see. And then Android gets their own colors, iOS gets their own colors, and web gets their own color, their own set of tokens. Now that's because we are in the beginning, so we have to do this manually. The same thing we have to do for other stuff in our design languages, like text. But in text, it's more complicated. We don't have yet a translation memory. We have a translation amnesia. We don't know where each size came from. We have a lot of different sizes, and now the effort is to try to synchronize between the different platforms and say, okay, what we see as 14, we have to name it text small for PrimeNG. In our legacy, it comes as a label, and in Android is used as body medium, label large, and title small. And in iOS is not used by default. So for now, we have this interface, this inventory. And the next thing, the thing I was working on today, was try to make these matches. Yeah. So, okay, this part of the whole translation can be quite a theoretical exercise if it's not translated to something that is usable. And in our careers as designers, we have been really focusing on communicating our design ideas through documentation. I think most of us have gone through this phase of writing and writing and writing to describe their design, to support their design. And it's okay, it's normal, but it's not something directly usable. So the developer will take this, and the best thing they can do with it is read it, which most of the cases they don't, because no one likes to read documentation. So we have to provide as designers something that is more usable, something that developers can take and directly use it in their work. And thank the gods, tokens are there for that. So we can start documenting our design decisions not in a very nice book with very nice illustrations, but in very boring variables. And it's okay because developers are used to it. They like variables. And also with design tokens, we can start building the logic, or embedding the logic we have as designers as we define type scales or scales of size and spacing in algorithms. And guess who loves algorithms? Yeah, developers. Weird stuff, huh? So here you start to see kind of a new specialization emerging. Can we talk about design coding when actually designers are starting to write code, but it's not exactly code because it's nothing really advanced. It's just JSON files with a bunch of definitions. But this ugly thing, it's much more useful for developers than a beautiful brand book. So so far, we respected the natives. Everyone is happy because we don't override too much. We also find a way to address the language gap that we might have between developers and designers. We deliver something that is usable to the developers and not something that just documents. Next step is to bring in the robots. So yeah, I imagine sometime in the future, there's been a lot of talk about, AI. I don't mean artificial intelligence when I talk about robots, but automation, stuff that machines do better than us. So we can reach a point in some years that we say, okay, you remember we had this thing with this little robot, this little whatever, and we taught it to understand each other. So now we don't speak to each other anymore because the robot is in between us. The future is not so far as it seems so. Okay, it's 3 years or 2 years. But even now, we have tools that we can start using. Android Studio, as an experimental feature, supports importing designs from Figma. We didn't try it yet, but we will soon. So that means that something is translated directly, like a component, into code for Android. And Amazon has released its style dictionary, which actually translates JSON files, the ones that we produce as designers, to different style sheets for iOS, Android, and CSS. So right now in the phase we are in, we did the first iteration of delivering tokens that was manual. So I had to deliver to my developers different JSON files that respect the structure of its, let's say, platform. But in the next step, and what we're investigating now, is to automate that. So we're going to have a single JSON with all our semantic definitions, and this will be translated into style sheets for different platforms. So the robots are here, and we are happy because we don't have to copy paste so much. Now, once we've done that, we are in a very good spot already. If we manage to do all that, it's okay. We're gonna survive. And then it's time to speak about separation of concerns. And separation of concerns is like a concept coming from software engineering, of course, because they thought of everything before us. But here I want to introduce, I want to entertain the concept of extreme separation of concerns. And what do I mean by that? Let's be honest with each other. Developers don't care about design. They don't, and they shouldn't, because it's not their business, because it's not their concern. They don't care if the button is blue or red. They just need to know that there is a button, and this button is a primary button, so they can use the right component there to build whatever they want to build. And it's okay that they don't care, because if they care, they start to have opinions, and we start to have opinions, then we have problems, right? So if we can take this concept of separation of concerns into extreme, into the context of a design system, we can imagine that a wireframe is good enough. Why do you need pixel perfect designs to the developers? It's enough to say, okay, here you have this container, it takes that class. Here we have these buttons, and it can be really, really, really simpler than what we produce now, and much more faster and much more efficient. And it's difficult to imagine that. We are so used as designers in our heads, in the way of working, to produce this pixel perfect image of the products that is about to be built, and then also insisting that it should be exactly like that in the development, in the live code, which is never the case, but we're still trying and pushing, and replace it with something that I don't know yet how it looks like, but it certainly doesn't look like what we have today. And if you want to break it down, like take any component or any bigger thing like a product or a page, in any kind of level of aggregation you want or detail, we're going to have the same concerns always. We're going to have concerns about look and feel, and that's a designer concern. Developer don't care. Interaction behavior, talking about different states and how the transition between states, again, it's a designer concern. Structure that comes with components, a designer concern. Layout, a designer concern. And then we start to talk to developers when we talk about functionality, how these things work, talk about content and data, navigation, and we leave the rest to the developers. So if we extremely separate the concerns, the only things that we're going to talk about and we need to communicate during a handover to the developer are these three. And basically we have a perfect design system in place. All UI, the whole UI can be abstracted. They don't need to see it. Developers can create a full application without ever looking, in theory, on the render screen. They look at the render screen only for validation purposes. Okay, I'm stepping here because the sun is starting to blind me and it's not nice. But separating the concern so much is not enough. We have two more steps to go, if you remember. So we have the whole setup and everything is nice. We know how to handle our differences to our advantages, but we also need to be in sync and we have to mirror our structures. Otherwise, it won't work. We have to say it again and again as design system people that a component library in Figma is not a design system. If it doesn't exist in code, if developers cannot use it to build products, there is no design system in place. And coming from kind of an agency mentality where you need to have a tangible deliverable, the first thing you learn, design system, we are selling a design system and it's basically a style guide. When you talk about design systems, it exists in Canvas and in code. And if you have imbalance there, then you start to have problems because what you have in your Figma doesn't reflect the reality exactly. So it's better to have one component in all the frameworks that you support than having 1,000 only in Figma. And it's good also to, apart from the language and the terms and how we name things and all that, it's also good to have the same structure in our libraries. Same content in the same place and the same version. So no, okay, our design system in Figma is version 23. In Android, it's 1, 2.5 in iOS. No, we should, together with developers, define when we update the version, what does it mean, and keep it consistent across all platforms. Last point, and sorry designers, but we need to start working more like developers. Because while we were philosophizing about our different roles in a product design thing, and every time we meet a new team of designers, fellow designers, we have to reinvent the wheel and think about how are we going to work together? What are we going to do? What are our rituals? Developers have that figured out. I mean, a developer is much easier to onboard in a new team because the things will be the same. If you work agile, it's the same thing. Either you work for one team or the other, than designers that we again and again have to revise everything because I don't know why. So there are things like daily stand-ups, the fact that nothing goes live if there is not a peer review in place, processes like request for comment if you need a new component, the whole process of branching and how we manage all this versioning, the push-pull commit stuff. All are these things that I think designers in the design system, working on design systems, should start adopting. And we should get off our high horse that, okay, no, we're not, no, we're gonna do it differently. Yeah, that's as far as I got with these ideas and the Secret Handshake. I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Yes. Who has questions? Yes.
Hello, Stefanos.
Hello.
Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering what has been your most challenging environment as a design system owner, and what makes it more harder or more easier for you to implement or work on a design system.
You mean a platform, Android, iOS, or
yeah, whatever?
We are having problems now with iOS, not because it's difficult to set up a design system so much as that in order for it to work, like to have a first install and a first adoption, we're gonna have problems because they support versions that we cannot support in our libraries, and also they did too much overriding. So now if we roll back to some defaults that we want to, everything will look messed up. You're gonna have different sizes in the components and what we have now. So we're still trying to figure out how are we going to have adoption for one of our applications that we're supporting without breaking everything. So that's the biggest challenge right now, let's say.
Thank you.
Hi, Stefanos.
Hello.
Thank you for the call. Just a quick question regarding the beginning of your talk about what was it, like having to keep the framework in their shape, so not making too much override. I understand that you have 3 different dev in your team. How do you handle those 3 framework from a design perspective, but from a design system perspective, but from a designer lens?
We are not going to expose to the designers the whole complexity lying behind the fact that we have 3 frameworks support and they use different terms. That's why we have this semantic level in everything that is like the interface of the designer. So the designers basically can choose their own terms of speaking about their work without knowing how these terms will be translated. That's for us in the design system level. So we can, again, separation of concerns. You don't need to care as a designer. It will make the life much more complicated, I think, if we start to expose all the complexity behind the translations and how we produce tokens to the designers.
Okay, so you do not expect having a designer working on Android or a designer working on iOS or a designer working on the web?
There is such split, but the designers now we have in the team, they work on product level, and they're using the design system, and they will continue to do so. But they're also changing. We don't have dedicated Android or iOS designers. So regardless if they're working on one platform or the other, the vocabulary that they're using should be the same. Otherwise, it will be a major workload to get accustomed to a new framework because you just changed device. Here we call it this, then we call it that. No, something else.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So thank you, Stefanos. It was a great presentation. It's a bit in the trends today about will this technology replace my job? You see, with AI, obviously. I'm asking you on purpose this question of will design system replace me as a designer? What designer should I look like, or how do I behave in the future in order to keep my job?
Okay. Tough question. I don't think it will replace any designer in the design system. I think it's going to, the goal is to make our lives easier as designers, right? So we don't have to specify this again and again, the same thing. Think in BPOST, we are at the level right now where we have to give the color code for type every time we do a handover. So from there, and eliminating that to you losing your job because of a design system, it's a huge distance. And I don't think we're gonna ever.
How long?
1 month or 2 months.
No, I don't think so. Maybe our concern will be different as designers. Maybe we will focus on the things that matter than all these stupid details, but not the fact that we're gonna lose our job. Not from a design system, and I also don't think of because of AI.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hello.
For now, you expose one version of where you see the design come from one side, and then it goes to the development and so on. But can it go the other way around from developers or different teams that are developing a product and then go back to you?
So have teams contributing in the design system?
Yeah. How do you open that? Because in our case, we have a lot of different teams with a lot of different products, and everyone is looking for a solution that is not already in the design system. So of course, we need to say, okay, this is too far away, or okay, you can go in that direction, but and then take it back and put it into the design system. How do you imagine that flow?
Yeah, so we were using a concept, I think it was by Nathan Curtis, that is called expansion pack. The idea that you have your default library and then you give the teams the possibility to expand it with what they need.
What was the name again?
It's called, the idea is of an expansion pack, that you have your default, let's say, library, and every time you need something new, you can expand it. And then the design system ownership role is to see, okay, if we can bring together different expansions. But the expansion pack should serve at least 2 products. So you will never put components that are serving only one product for one product. These are for the product teams, not for the design system teams. So that we haven't tried it yet because we are so much in the beginning that we don't even think about saying, oh, we are open to contributions. We're gonna stay closed for quite some time. But when the time comes, that will be the idea that both designers and developers will have the opportunity to contribute in expansion packs and then take it to higher level by evaluation, let's say.
Maybe another question about the tokens. You talked a lot about handover with developers. Would it be easier to put everything in GitHub and there it's already synchronized?
We do the same in Bitbucket. So,
okay, yeah.
Well, for me, the new thing is that as a designer, I have to manage my own repository, which is something completely new. Like, I don't know how to do it yet. I'm going to my developers, I'm like, what is this button? What does push do? Should I push it? Or what is pull? Or what is commit? And then I'm very happy that I learn new things, and developers are also happy to teach me, I think.
Question on your team, in the product team for the design system. How many are you, and are they solely dedicated to the design system, or they're working on other projects at the same time?
So the team for now is myself, a design system owner, 2 developers for iOS and Android. We are soon gonna have a 3rd one for web. And we are part of a larger team that is called Digital Custodians. And that team is offering design as a service to the business for all applications. So we have these designers working in applications and using the design system, so the users. And in the team, it's me full-time and another designer, like spending one day per week for special concerns like accessibility or things like that. And then in the team, we also have copywriters. We also have analytics people. So there is also a kind of a roadmap to start involving these people to see, okay, what is the role of analytics when it comes to design system, what is the contribution of the content people to the design system. But we make the difference between full-time and part-time. We have gonna have 4 people in full-time for the design system, and all the rest are kind of ad hoc and occasional contributions.
I have a last question
Yeah.
regarding the tokens. Have you already settled the granularity of your tokens? Because we are now, like in my own project, we are now refactoring the tokens and the way we are delivering colors, spacing, and all those informations. And we are in the middle of a discussion regarding the semantic part of the tokens.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, did you already settle the granularity, and which will it be?
We are only going to expose semantic tokens, not core tokens. And we are not sure if going to support semantic tokens at the component level, because I think that will be a huge thing to maintain. Like having all, for a button, you need, I don't know how many tokens, and that can grow exponentially. We might try it, but I'm not so sure. I'm really scared of that
So you're
encounter. And that
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And you're building tokens per component. Like for instance, you have a button color, button hover,
not
button
yet.
active, button focus.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if we're gonna reach the granularity
okay.
of components, because then it will explode.
Yeah, explode.
Yeah. It's enough to have for now good semantic tokens that everyone understands and they can use, and then we'll see.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Stefanos.
Thank you.
It was a very, very nice talk. Thanks a lot for your time.
You're welcome.
I know we have a gift somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So I don't know if somebody can pick it up. There we go. So no, yeah, I really look forward to one day have the update. I think we can all look forward to that. Huh? The one day that we can just click a button, update everything. So,
Yeah, we can repeat the same talk every year and be like, remember what we talked about? Forget it. It doesn't work.
The robots are here, finally.
Or we failed or we succeeded, we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks a lot anyways. Really great
My
talk.
pleasure.
I think the gift is still on its way, running. On its way. Right. Lost in translation somewhere.
I feel that in a world with developer that does not challenge that,
Really?
Yeah, but I that they challenge my vision.
Thanks.
That's an interesting.
Also for them. Survive.
So developers will be replaced by AI. You see, or designers.
And other people.
This is interesting topics, I think. No. I suggest handing over the bottle. We can all have a beer and continue the discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
But thanks again, Stefanos, for your time and great talk. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.